welcome to Movie Scout 007's Keyboard Road Warrior series, where we play Euro Truck Simulator 2 with just a laptop. So, at the end of the last journey, we leveled up. We leveled up to level 8. We got a skill point to spend, and we enabled some upgrades. So, first thing we're going to do is apply that skill point. So let's go to that first. So the last skill point we applied, we put on a high value cargo. I'm going to put this one on long distance. Let's expand our reach. So with rank 1 of long distance deliveries, go up to 750k. We get 5% higher reward for delivery distance longer than 500k, and 25 experience bonus for delivery distances longer than 500k. So that's quite good. So let's apply that. Okay, and let's look at our upgrades. So for us in our Volvo, we get a bull bar that fits over the nose of the radiator vents. We get 2 new sun visors for the Classic. Oh, we get the Globetrotter cab for the Classic. And we get a sun visor for the Volvo FH. And we get the Globetrotter for the FH. We get to make our lorry look a little prettier. You can see, actually, you get pretty much similar upgrades. It depends on what's available. Like, for instance, the Scania gets a couple of engines. The MAN gets an engine. Mercedes, they get an engine. There's a couple of sun visors. There's a racing livery for the Renaults. Vaco get a couple of engines, but it's mostly the same sort of things. It's the same sort of rectangular bull bar, the Sade paint scheme, and there's a cab option as well. So let's sort ourselves out so that we're ready. So we need to go and repair the truck and get some rest. So we're going to do that. Today I am drinking coffee from a mug that has a lid on it. I'm not going to go through that trauma again. So let's fire up our sweetheart, our lovely FH, and let's make our way. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about unfortunately today in London, I'm recording this on the 20th. Overnight, back in the UK, one of the big theatres in London had a roof collapse, which is appalling. It's not something you want to see. Where were we? Let's find ourselves. I've forgotten what city we went to. We went to Linz. Where's Linz? No, I can't find out where we are on the map. There we are. See the little blue triangle. So we're at the very bottom of Austria, Österreich. So we need to take a right, and then a right, and then a left. Cool. So we yes, it's horrifying. It's the essentially part of the plaster roof, the ornate plaster roofing, came down. Oh crikey! So that's because my mouse moved, and so my camera was in a different position. the roof came down and it pulled some of the lighting rig with it, and the play, which is currently on at the Apollo, which I think is called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night. Obviously that's had to be postponed. We've gone the wrong way. No, we don't want to do that. We do not want to do that at all. Darn, we should have gone straight on and then followed the road round. Let's see if we can pull a U-turn and get ourselves back in the right direction. I wanted to quickly address that and say that it's terrible. It's not something you ever want to see. It's not the sort of thing you expect when you go to the theatre to end up going home in an ambulance. And I can't imagine how horrifying it must have been, to be enjoying a play, hopefully, and then to suddenly find that that you are buried under rubble, as it were. Understandably, in Britain, it's very difficult to get photographs of any incident. I'm not one of those people I see enough gore in my work life. I work for Amnesty International, and pretty much every booklet that we produced references death in one way or another, and more than half of them feature pictures of dead bodies, and it's not something you want to see on a daily basis. So it's kind of it hasn't inured me to death. I still find death every bit as horrifying as I did before I started working there, but what it has done is it's meant I am less inclined to go looking for that sort of thing. I mean, I was never really massively inclined to look for that sort of thing anyway, but I find I'm positively disinclined when it comes to that sort of thing. I absolutely think that the news needs to be reported as it is. I absolutely believe that you cannot hide the truth of a situation from children, and honesty is always the best policy. I think allowing them to watch a news programme that features that sort of thing has its complications, and it's up to the individual parent. But if I had children, I think I would allow them to watch those news programs, but I would immediately have a conversation with them afterwards saying that was a real person who had parents, possibly children, possibly siblings, but it was a real person that you just saw, and there's nothing to be celebrated, or there's nothing to be enjoyed about that sort of thing. Why is this guy going so slow? That's appalling. Right, we're not going to stand for that. And I'm currently living in a city, Christchurch, which has suffered the most appallingly 3 years ago. It had two massive earthquakes, one in the September, which was outside the city limits, and one which was inside the... Goodness me, £5,693. See, that is what happens when you drive into a median. The engine took 6% of damage, the transmission 3%, the chassis 12%, the cab 10%, and our tyres, well, I mean, the tyres would have taken that anyway. That 2% is just road usage. It's possibly would have only been 1%, but £5,693, that's not good. While we're here, let's look at that upgrade, see if we like the idea of upgrading our cab. Ooh. Should we do it, or should we keep our cash for our empire? What do you think? Also, should we do this? No, I don't think we should do that. What else did I see? We still don't have the larger bogie. I don't know. I don't know if we should do this. What do you think, guys? Should we do it? Should we go? Should we blow £28,000 on that? I'm gonna hold off. I'm gonna spend the money on this when we get to level 12. It seems a little silly going from this cab to the bigger cab. We don't need to do it. Yeah, there's nothing else compelling. Nothing else compelling. No extra bogie, no extra engines. We've got the best transmission we can get. So yes, no, let's forget that. Let's forget that. So, next thing is to get some rest. So, let's find somewhere to park. Minding the man truck that's right there in that lovely blue. Okay, engine off. Let's get some rest. Hopefully this will take us into daytime. Oh, John's earned us some money and he's upgraded. He's leveled up, sorry. So we're up to 70, so we're about 10 grand from being able to buy a third truck. Once we've got our third truck, we'll need another £80,000 to upgrade Liverpool's garage to 5 vehicles, and then our next aim will be to get another 80,500 for each extra lorry. So next we're going to find a delivery to pick up, so we need to get our next job. So let's go to the freight market. Now bear in mind we clicked for an extra, where are we? We're in Linz here, so let's go follow our tradition of going from the city we're in. So, ooh, look at that. We can take forklifts, 14 tons of forklifts to Milan. Now, have we been to Milan? I think we've been to Milan. I'd prefer to go to a city we haven't been to already. Frankfurt. Don't think we've been to Frankfurt, and we've not been to Budapest. Which should we do? Which should we do? Let's go to Frankfurt. Frankfurt in Germany. We've got a lot of cities to visit in Germany. So let's take those 20 tons of potassium hydroxide to Frankfurt in Germany from Linz in Austria. And we'll set the GPS as our destination. So that takes us back to the lorry. So let's fire up the lorry. We don't need the lights because it's 7:30 in the morning. And let's turn the volume down a little bit. So we're turning left. So I've discovered if you press number lock and 6, oh hang on. Number lock and 6 you look right, and number locks and 4 you look left, and you can do it quite quickly, which is quite good. And 1 takes you back to looking straight ahead. So let's go for it. The tragedy. A small-scale tragedy, but a tragedy nonetheless, especially if anybody has lost their life. It doesn't matter how many people have lost their lives, or life. Any number is a tragedy. End of story. But I live in Christchurch at the moment, which has suffered horrifyingly in 2009 and 2010 with the 2 major earthquakes, one which was in the countryside of Canterbury and the outskirts of the city itself, and then the February one, which did all of the real horrifying televisual damage, and created the deep scars that the city suffers with even now. I think this is where we pick up our load. Yeah, this is where we pick up our... Oh no, no, that's a garage. What am I playing at? So where is our... I think I sailed by it. I think it's the NFC... Boom. NBFC, yes, the NBFC, so we sailed by it. So I need to pull a Yui. And as soon as that van's gone, then go in and we'll pick up our load. So I like this kind of depot. You get plenty of space. So Linz to Frankfurt for £14,872 with WGCC. Let's go and pick up the trailer, and you can see it there flashing just by our pasted over mirror. So let's pull our Yui and get ourselves in position. And let's reverse in. Yes. So Christchurch has really hardly recovered at all. There are buildings going up, but I think emotionally Christchurch still is suffering from the earthquake. I've been here 6 months now, and in that time, almost every conversation I have with someone from Christchurch or someone who was in Christchurch on the day of the earthquake, almost every conversation ends up being about that earthquake. And you can't get away from it. It becomes what the conversation is about. It becomes the focus of the conversation. It's very difficult to get the conversation back to what you were talking about before. Yeah, and that's understandable. It was a terrifying event for everybody involved. Okay, we're being buzzed by that guy, so that's good. We can... No, you swine. You wait, and then the second I move... That's just... That's... What the hell? Alright. I think we've just got to go. Because at this point... we did it. We managed to avoid it, so let's just double check that we didn't have suffer... Yeah, 0 and 0. Right. It's very difficult to get a conversation back to what it was about before they started talking about the earthquake, and that's that's just the way it is. It's one of those things. So let's go. Let's rock. So distracted by my clock. I've got my 50-minute timer on so that we don't lose a minute of this game footage just because my iPhone isn't good enough to hold more than 50 minutes of footage. Right, let's handbrake there. Ooh, we're good. We're good to go. Sorry. Let's go. And we're turning right. Let's get over to our own side before that lorry. But you can't blame the people. They when they want to talk about it, because it's a traumatic event, and for most of the 3 years since the earthquake, probably they've spent most of their time with people who were there already, and so then it's not really cathartic to talk about something to someone who's already thinking about their own experience, and every experience is different, and so quite often you hear people talking who both were in the event, and they're like, no, it wasn't like that, it was like this, when in fact it was actually they both of their experiences are correct and valid. It's just they had very different ones. I think it's more cathartic to speak to someone who's not going to be be telling them, no, that's wrong, that's not how it was. I mean, you get to hear some very interesting stories, but it would be nice if I could have a conversation with someone in Christchurch that didn't revolve around the earthquake just once or twice. But it's not the sort of thing you can say to someone. It sounds terribly selfish and terribly dispassionate, and of course it is. It's very selfish, and it's very and it does demonstrate a lack of empathy. But every now and again, I think everybody feels just a little bit lacking in empathy, and everybody has a bad day. My bad days just happen to be around people who need you to be having a good day. So yes, I am a Brit, and I am living in New Zealand, and there were a couple of things that 6 months in, I think I can speak to some of the differences between the UK and New Zealand, which I find quite amusing. I think the most obvious is the whole rugby thing. It seems less like a sport and more like a religion. In more so than football is in Britain. Football is the national sport. Football is the one. Oh God, I'm weaving all over the road here. Football is the sport that gets in the UK that gets the most TV coverage. But we have vibrant rugby league, rugby union, tennis, motorsports, darts, gymnastics, swimming. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of sport in the UK, and while there is a tremendous amount of sport in the UK, New Zealand has a population of 4.3 million people. The UK has a population of nearly 70 million, and so to put that in perspective, the whole of New Zealand, in terms of landmass, is slightly larger than the United Kingdom, but the entire population of New Zealand is half the size of the population of London. Half the size of them. They're running an entire country, a military, an infrastructure, a health service, on the same kind of budget that London runs, and it doesn't run a military. It runs a health service and an education service, just like New Zealand. But yes, half the size of the population of London. London is 8.7. New Zealand, the whole of New Zealand, is 4.2. So it's quite funny to have a conversation with someone who, from this country, who's never left this country, who has a very, shall we say, insular view of the world, particularly in light of the fact that they're so far away from everyone else. And the problem, usually the people that haven't travelled are also not partaking in any higher education. So that makes the conversation even more interesting, because they have, at best, a high school standard of education. And they've got that sort of small person mentality. They're a small country, yet they've also got the whole "our rugby's better than anyone else in the world" thing going on. And I think that's possibly a good thing. People need something to be happy about. People need something to cheer on. Everything can't be relentlessly miserable, and it's nice to see that New Zealand itself is actually starting, one of the early countries to make a recovery. They are in a much better position than their larger neighbours, Australia. Australia were surviving the 2008 to present day recession, global recession, quite well. But I think what's happened is That's because a lot of their citizens weren't in the country. Australia has this habit of sending its citizens out into the world. I think this is fantastic. I think if America sent its citizens out into the world as on such a scale as Australia, then America would be a much nicer place as a nation. Not as individuals. As individuals, they are wonderful people. Americans are absolutely astonishingly hospitable, incredibly warm and friendly. It's as a nation that they scare the crap out of me. But yeah, so Australia sent a lot of its citizens out into the world. The trouble is the world has been suffering a recession, and the first thing you do is you get rid of non-citizens. You make people redundant, and unless a person is critical to employment, usually the relative government department goes, do you really need that person from another country in this job when there are people in this country with the same qualifications? So what's happened in the last 2 years is a lot of Australian citizens have started coming back to Australia because they've lost their job out in the wider world. And so where Australia was doing fine, because what would happen is if there wasn't a job in Australia, you'd just go out of Australia. Now people are coming back and looking for a job within Australia. It'll work out. Australians being back in Australia will eventually work out. People will eventually get jobs. When with that job, they'll be contributing to the GDP. They'll be contributing to the government purse, which enables the government to continue with infrastructure and social programs, which are absolutely vital. So it will work out. It's just at the moment they're suffering a little bit of a backlash from the rest of the world. I think Australia probably in a better position to recover from that than other nations, in that they've got industry. They're a fairly large nation. I think there's only 1 or 2 cities where it's practically astronomically difficult to afford to live, and that I think is Sydney and Melbourne. There's only 1 city in New Zealand where I am where that's the case, and that's Auckland. Auckland has 1/3 of New Zealand's population living within its city limits. It's by far and away the big city. In fact, it's only not the capital of New Zealand, because the South Island were making noises about becoming a separate country, and the North Island didn't want that. The New Zealand government didn't want that, so they made a very swift decision to move the capital to the bottom of the North Island, to Wellington, so that the South Islanders felt they were closer to the decision-making process, and they felt that maybe they weren't left out. I don't know whether that's worked. I don't know whether that was a politically motivated. Well, it's almost certainly a politically motivated move, but I don't know whether it's helped New Zealand. What would New Zealand be if it were 2 separate nations? Would that have even happened? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. But they felt like they had to do something, and they did it, and it's worked for them. It's a nice little country. I like it. I am homesick. All my family are in the UK. I miss the UK. I miss motorsports. You just can't get motors. I mean, at least with the BBC, I could watch half the Formula 1 races. New Zealand's not interested in motorsport, which, given that 2 world champions in the history of the Formula 1 World Championship are New Zealanders, Denny Hulme and Bruce McLaren, it does surprise me just a little. Oh, let's get some petrol. Actually, I just looked at the gauge and we're quite low. Let's turn the engine off and let's get some petrol in there. It's quite a funny noise, because this is a noise from an analog pump, which don't exist anymore except in the poorest of countries and the poorest of towns. Most of them have got digital pumps now, and so you get the pumping noise, but not this sort of click and whir from the tumblers turning over. So we spent £946 on 810.27 litres of fuel. So let's fire up. So before we move off, we've got 10 hours and it's going to take us 4 hours. We can easily do this. We're not going to need to sleep. So this is the benefit of getting a little bit of rest before you set off, is that you don't have to worry as much about getting a rest before you drive off, because the game won't take into account the fact that you haven't had a rest. And when you start getting the just-in-time deliveries, you're getting less and less time to make the delivery, and so it becomes vital to get that little bit of sleep before you start the journey. So we are a half an hour into our journey, and I haven't spilt my tea yet, so that's good. Yeah, tea, not coffee. I said coffee. I don't know why I said coffee. Being a Dilbert. So another of the differences is that between the UK and New Zealand is the language. They speak English like we do, but they're not always in the same way. It's minor stuff. For the most part, well, I would say if you're an English speaker, it's impossible not to understand a person from New Zealand. They are very clear, very well spoken. They have fewer, almost no regional differences in accent, like you do in the UK. The only discernible different accent you can detect is the Maori people, because they speak Maori. That has and they speak it from birth. It has an effect on the way they speak English, in the same way that a Spaniard can't pronounce S's. The Maori has a different effect. I haven't properly grappled with it. I'm not a linguist, but I might be wrong, but personally I feel you can tell you're speaking to a Maori without seeing them. If you don't know what a Maori is, the year 800, so you're probably talking about 900 years before Europeans. They came from the Pacific Isles to New Zealand, landed in the North Island, and then started to wander through the country and started to. So for 900 years, they sort of wandered around and became the population of New Zealand. And then in the 1600s, Europeans arrived and did what Europeans sadly do best, which is to brutalise the incumbent population or indigenous. Maoris are not indigenous to New Zealand in the same way that American Indians aren't indigenous to North America, but they were the incumbent population. You know, I'm a very great believer in if people are there, leave them the hell alone. Let them decide their own future, which is obviously not what 16th, 17th and 18th century and 19th even century Western Europeans believed. They believed they were bringing culture and technology, and they believed they were making the lives of these people better. I'm not so sure they were. I'm not sure they have. I mean, we're paying a loan instalment, £4,630. So I think that's our third or fourth instalment. So only 66 or 67 instalments left to go. That sounds horrifying when you look at it in those terms. But if we think we've paid 3 or 4 instalments, so we're doing well. We've paid £17,000 out of our 320. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot of money. And obviously, once we start doing the longer journeys, we'll probably do 3 or 4 loan instalments per journey, and it starts to get quicker. At this stage of our career, we'll be paying a loan instalment. We'll probably be paying 1 loan instalment per journey because we're not going far enough. So yeah, some of the things that are different. It's simply just pronunciations of words. The word data, which we pronounce as data, which was the pronunciation that the founder of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, gave to the character. He seems to have been a bit of an Anglophile. He chose Data's name as Data rather than Data. Data, sorry. The Americans say data, but in New Zealand they say data. They say date as date, but data as data. Data as data, which I find beyond peculiar, because the only change is the last letter. It doesn't seem to be enough of a change to warrant the complete change of pronunciation of a word, from data to data, as opposed from date to date. They say debut as debut, although that one I can't really argue with, because that sounds closer to the French pronunciation, and debut is originally a French word. So I've not really got a lot of... I'm not really bugged by that one. I am bugged by vitamin. They say they have clearly embraced, they embrace a lot of British television, but they seem to embrace American culture along with television, and so a lot of American pronunciations have naming conventions have come to New Zealand, which annoy the living piss out of me. I hate hearing the word vitamin pronounced as vitamin. Now, I understand the origin of the word is from vita, which I think is Latin for life. I might be wrong on that, I don't know. But I prefer the pronunciation vitamin. I prefer another one that really annoys the hell out of me is router. There are two words, router and router. Now, a router is a device, obviously if you're techno-savvy, it's the device that you use to get your internet signal from the telephone line to the computer. A router is a device you use to extract wood in a pattern. It usually looks like a drill bit. You plunge the router's blade, a circular bit, into the wood, and then you move it in a particular shape, and you extract the wood in a shape. And that's what a router is, and routing is the act of removing that wood. A router is what you use. And also, when you are making a journey, you're selecting your route, not your route. But New Zealanders have selected this moronic mispronunciation, and again, horrifying feeling. It is American influence. Again, I'm not having a go at Americans. I love Americans as individuals. I've yet to meet an American personally that I didn't love and want to hug at the end of a conversation. They are, as I've said, so far in my experience, warm, friendly, and generous to a fault. Their nation, their government, and them en masse scare the living hell out of me, and I'm a bit annoyed by the arrogance of completely changing the language just because you couldn't be bothered with it the way it was. English is a confusing language. I get that. But it's confusing because it's sourced from so many places. From Germanic cultures, Franco cultures, Latin and Greek. We now have, unfortunately, influences from North America, a nation that didn't exist when modern English, as we know it, was already being used. It didn't exist as part of the known world. So actually, I'm saying that, and I'm realizing that sounds horrifyingly arrogant. The nation, the land existed. The nation of the United States and the nation of Canada didn't exist. They weren't. An English as a fully formed language that we use now existed before those nations were conceived as nations. The land has always existed. Just ask the American Indians. And so, I do get very irritated by the assumption that American English is the way everything should be done. In the same way that I get annoyed that Americans believe that the US dollar is the currency that should be a world currency. We've discovered Frankfurt, people. Fantastic. Actually, is there a collectible that we can look at? Oh, yes. Ooh. We get one of them before we get to our destination? English second language. And of course, I'm in the wrong bleeding lane. Of course I'm in the wrong bleeding lane. So, they've also got a couple of peculiarities of pronunciation that seem to be, as far as I can tell, unique to them. The data is one of them. Another one, oh no, we don't want to crush that car. That would be very bad. Is words that have a W in them, in the middle, particular words. Grown, shown, and there's another one I can't remember. But instead of saying grown and shown, they say grown and shown. I can't see any need to overpronounce the W in quite the way they do, but bless them, they do. And the thing is, they don't even know they're doing it. When I pointed it out, oh, we got a recruitment agency, excellent, that'll be brilliant, that'll be really helpful when it comes to getting our new driver. We'll have an extra recruitment agency to call upon. Right, so there is our delivery point on the left, and there's where we've got to stick it. It's quite interesting. I do a little bit of amateur dramatics, and we did a play, and my character had to use the word blackguard, which is actually spelt blackguard. And one of the people in the play with me is actually a teacher, and he said it was really refreshing. He said to hear an English speaker with an historical awareness of a word like blackguard, because he said had it been a New Zealander playing the part, they would have said blackguard and would have been confused. And it makes complete sense. Do you know what doesn't make sense is the way I've approached this. The way I've approached this parking spot doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But you never know. Often, when I think I've totally screwed the pooch in parking, is when I get it in relatively quickly. Have we? Are we going to clatter? No, we're not going to clatter the other. But I don't think. No, I don't want to do that. I don't think we're going to get this in first time, because I'm looking at, oh, hello. Maybe. No, you just saw we bumped the, we need to get it over just a little bit. Oh, it's always frustrating to have to go so far back. Remember not to go too far in the other direction, like I just have. Oh, that's annoying. Because then what ends up happening is you end up not being able to get the damn. You end up not being able to. Let's. If you overcompensate, you end up having to spend a lot of time wiggling one way or the other. This would be the one instance where More than anything else, I wish I had the steering wheel. I can easily cope with driving this game without the steering wheel in almost every other capacity. But it's the parking where I really wish I had the wheel. There we go. We're in. It's not taking me nearly as long as it used to, but it's still taking me longer than it should do. So we've done it, guys. We're here, and in only 45.5 minutes. So let's unhook the trailer. Let's get our reward. Look at that. Now we're not going to level up. That's fine. But we got an excellent rating for our delivery from Linz to Frankfurt am Main. We got £12,733. We got a level 8 bonus of 1,527. We had a skill rank, long distance skill rank, because we went over 500k. We got a skill rank of £612, giving us a total of £14,872. We travelled 528k in 6 hours and 44 minutes of game time and consumed 260.4 litres of fuel, which gives us 528 XP as a base reward, an ADR delivery bonus of 110 XP, a long distance delivery of 132 XP, and a parking bonus of 45 XP, giving us 815 XP. And we are well on our way to level 9. We're still an enthusiast, but we're 8,404 XP, which means that we've only got 596 XP to go until we can level up to level 9. Exciting stuff. Well, as ever, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. You're one of the band of brothers, one of the few, one of the chosen, one of the keyboard road warrior Illuminati. And I thank you very much for doing so. I will see you in the next video when we will choose our next destination, and I want to talk then about pro mods. I think I've touched upon it briefly in a previous video, but exciting stuff's happening with pro mods. I'm debating as to whether to put those extensions in this game. We'll talk about that in the next video. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining me on this video, and until I see you in the next video, I'll see you on the road.